Breaking news on CBS Sports HQ. The deal is getting done. According to multiple reports, the Sixers trading Ben Simmons for James Harden. So the big three breaking up in Brooklyn. Kevin Durant. Well, I mean, unless you say Ben Simmons is coming in to make it a new big three. But Ben Simmons did not play all season for the Sixers. He wanted out, and we learned a couple of days ago that James Harden wanted out. Not only wanted out, but wanted in a specific spot, and he got just that. Though Steve Nash a couple of nights ago said this was not going to happen. Nash was asked about the potential trade of James Harden, and this is what he said.
Talk to James. He wants to be here. He wants to be here long term as well. So I don't think anything's changed other than noise from the outside. James wants to be here. We're building with James, and we think we have the best chance to win with James.
It sounded like, and I don't want to misinterpret you, that you guys are not trading James Harden.
Yes, that's correct.
The old takes exposed from Steve Nash, who thought, no way are we trading James Harden. He was not right. Chris Hassell, joined by Rip Hamilton and Bill Ryder, our NBA insider here in Los Angeles. Avery Johnson is with us as well. Rip, it's the first time we've talked to you after this trade. What's your take?
Well, I thought that Philly gave up too much. I mean, especially knowing that both teams are in the Eastern Conference. Usually when knowing that there's another elite team there, you try to do everything possible not to give them the assets that you need that's going to get them over the hump. I mean, everybody's going to talk about the Ben Simmons for James Harden play, but also you got to realize that Philly threw in Andre Drummond. Where Brooklyn was lacking was inside presence, a guy that can defend, block shots, and he's a rebounding machine that can help him on that side of the ball. Then you add in Steph Curry, a guy that I love, that I didn't think that Philly would give up, especially knowing that Harris might be out for the rest of the season. You add another shooter, a guy that can play well with a guy like Kyrie Irving and Ben Simmons and a KD. So I think Brooklyn got the best of this deal.
That is certainly what I've heard from the people around the NBA, and was my first reaction. When the trade came down, guys, I thought, what am I missing here? What am I not processing properly? And then I remembered, and we were talking about this, it's an open secret in the NBA that Daryl Morey infatuated in a basketball sense with James Harden and what they did together in Houston. They're friends, and certainly some of the folks I talked to the last 24 hours, other GMs who can be petty and jealous, right, and sniping, but said, I don't think Daryl's going to go get him. But if he does, if he gives away what Sean Marks, his counterpart in Brooklyn, wants, it's hard to see how he does that without letting maybe his perspective on what happened in Houston, with that James Harden, a little bit younger, cloud where James Harden is today. Great player, but I think on the decline, 32 years old.
Avery?
I agree with the guys. This was a win for the Nets across the board. James Harden was obviously wanted out. He wanted to go to Philly. And fortunately, Philly had the right type of assets that fit well with the Brooklyn Nets. You get an outstanding defensive player in Ben Simmons. I know we always focus on, his exploits offensively in the playoffs last year, where he struggled. He struggled offensively, but this guy he's one of the best defenders in the NBA. He can guard 1 through 5. He rebounds the ball well. Obviously, he's an outstanding passer. He'll play a little bit more of his true position, which is going to be that slashing 5-man that can obviously still handle the ball. And he's going to be surrounded by some outstanding shooters. Patty Mills, Seth Curry, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving when he's available. When they want to go big, they can go big. With Drummond in the middle. And Drummond is a really good rebounder. So I just think one of the Nets' Achilles heel was their defense. They improved their defense because James Harden and Ben Simmons defensively, they're light years apart. Ben Simmons obviously doesn't have the three-point shooting or shooting at all that James Harden has, but he can be serviceable offensively. So I like this trade for the Nets.
We are less than an hour to the trade deadline today, 3 o'clock Eastern Time, noon Pacific. This, of course, by far the biggest trade of the day, but some other trades have already gone down as well in the NBA, and there might be more to come because we still have more time. And we're including some notable players to be traded just in the last few days leading up to the deadline as well. But, Bill, do you think that we could see Any more moves from specifically the Nets or Sixers today?
Yeah, I think certainly. I mean, the Nets are now armed. That's the other thing about this trade. They're also armed on top of all the players you walked us through and what they mean with 2 first-round picks that could be very valuable. Yeah, I think Brooklyn could certainly go out there and try to get some reinforcements and make a team that, again, first blush, early reaction, got to process it, suddenly looks like what they were supposed to be all along, and that is on paper. When Kyrie's playing, the best team in the NBA. They can get better.
What is the latest on Kyrie's postseason availability?
In terms of like his contract status and situation?
His ability to play this postseason, if the Nets indeed make it. I mean, they've lost 9 in a row.
I mean, so I know that there is some cautious optimism, and you hate to make any guesses about what goes on in a COVID world, but there is some cautious optimism that there is a movement, not to get into politics, but there is a movement toward fewer masks and maybe restrictions loosening a little bit around the country, including in the state of New York. And I know that some folks in the NBA have pointed to that and said, look, April, May is a long time when it comes to COVID, and it's a long time in the NBA. There's a sense that maybe the rules can change. Certainly no one I've talked to believes Kyrie Irving is going to get vaccinated. So for him to play in the postseason, one of 2 things have to happen. The Nets have to be willing to pay a fine that technically they could, but as I understand it, would not do that. Just the PR hit. Or the rules have to change, and we'll see if that happens.
Well, the Nets are still the favorite to win the NBA championship right now, at plus 425. The Sixers make a big jump today with this trade getting James Harden. They move from 12-1 to 7-1 at Caesars Sportsbook to win the NBA championship. Rip, how do you see Joel Embiid and James Harden working together?
Well, I like it in one way, is that now you got another added superstar to the Philadelphia 76ers. It takes some pressure off of Joel Embiid. He don't got to come out and have the same type of dominant play that he's had, but they still need it for him to win a championship, but not in the regular season. So putting them both guys in a pick and roll situation, now you can't just say, hey, you know what, we're just going to hedge out on James Harden in that pick and roll situation. Now we got to think about blitzing him or switching him, and now you're going to have all types of mismatches on the offense end. Where I'm worried is that James want to play fast. He want to get up and out in transition, kind of very similar to how he played in Houston. Joel Embiid wants the game slowed down. He don't want to get up and down the court as fast, as much as possible, especially, knowing that he is one of the most dominant players that we have in the paint. So I'm very curious to see what style of play they're going to play. Are they going to play fast? Are they going to play slow? That's the big question mark for me for the Philadelphia 76ers.
Avery, what would you do if you were the head coach of the Sixers and you have Harden coming in to play with Embiid right now?
Well, I would, first of all, make sure that James Harden is healthy. All right? It's no more hamstring injuries. Make sure he's 100% ready to go. Probably put him through some extra conditioning work, on 9 game days. He has to get back to the Houston Rockets, James Harden. If he doesn't, this is not going to work. He's got to be the guy that's, who was leading the NBA in scoring, playing at a high level, getting to the free throw line. And if he's not in tip-top condition physically, it's not going to work. But also, let me just throw something else at you guys that we haven't talked about. How strong is the top end of the Eastern Conference now? I know the discussion is surrounding the Nets and the Sixers, but what about Miami, Chicago, Milwaukee? I mean, those top 5 teams in the Eastern Conference is going to really make for some really drama towards the second half of the year after the All-Star break and then in the playoffs. So I'm just fired up of how strong the Eastern Conference is with all of these moves that are being made.
If you had to pick one team right now in the East, who would it be, Bill?
I mean, I'm still going to go with the Milwaukee Bucks because I've seen that, and it's amazing to me that a team that has, along with Embiid, the first or second best player in the NBA right now, who is an MVP. Their defending champions are so under the radar. They're playing really, really well. I know folks in that organization feel really good about just where they're at in terms of not taking for granted that it's the year after a championship. But the Nets, I got to see it. I got to see Simmons. I need to see where he's at, when he's back, how that looks. That certainly looks like a team that could be number 2.
I'm probably going to have to go with Brooklyn. I mean, the pieces that they add to this ball club, it just makes sense for them. Ben Simmons, I know the trainer that's been working him out for the last couple months, and he says this is the best that Ben Simmons has looked in a long time. So
can he shoot?
He's very confident in the jump shot. He's knocking down Jays.
Okay.
So I think when he comes out and steps on the floor, people are going to be very surprised. Kind of like when Kyrie first stepped on the court. People didn't think that he would have that rhythm and that timing on the court, especially with his teammates. So I do think that Brooklyn, when you add Ben Simmons, then you got a big like Andre Drummond. Coach talked about how great of a defender Ben Simmons is. That's going to help them, especially in the playoffs, because we know that they got probably two of the best closers in the game with KD and Kyrie Irving. So when you add these pieces around them, I think that now they're built to win the World Championship.
Still the favorites to win it all right now, and Sportsline has rerun the numbers with the trade. Stephen O just sent out updated odds and simulations, and the chances for the Nets go up with this trade. They go from winning the NBA championship 7% of the time to winning the NBA championship 8% of the time. And interestingly enough, Philadelphia's chances to win go down just slightly with the addition of James Harden, which is really kind of baffling when you consider that the guy that traded wasn't even playing. But listen, Sportsline, I mean, they got 10 million simulations at a time. Stephen O has an incredible algorithm there that usually comes out on top.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.